Welcome to ZoomInData. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining the 13th and final video in our comprehensive Azure Logic Apps series. In this session, titled Real-World Examples, Scenarios, and Best Practices, we will cover practical, real-world use cases across industries, finance, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, and more. Complete end-to-end scenarios demonstrating how Logic Apps solves common business challenges. Proven best practices for design, performance, reliability, maintainability, and long-term success. Tips for avoiding common pitfalls and scaling Logic Apps in production environments. This session brings everything together, showing how the concepts from the previous 12 videos are applied in real enterprise solutions. If you find this content valuable, please subscribe to ZoomInData and enable notifications. More Azure content is coming soon. Let us begin. What makes real-world scenarios essential for mastering Azure Logic Apps? Real-world scenarios show how theoretical concepts, triggers, actions, connectors, security, combine to solve actual business problems. They demonstrate trade-offs between consumption versus standard, performance versus cost, and simplicity versus robustness. Understanding proven patterns helps professionals design scalable, maintainable solutions and perform better in interviews, certifications. Describe a common approval workflow scenario. Trigger: new item created in SharePoint list or Microsoft Forms submission, example expense request. Actions: pass JSON, form data. Condition: amount greater than threshold. Send approval request via approvals connector or email, Teams. Wait for response. Route to finance system on approval. Best practice: use parallel branches for manager and finance notifications, and add timeout with escalation. Explain a data synchronization scenario between CRM and ERP. Trigger: when a record is created or updated in Dynamics 365, CRM. Actions: get record details, pass JSON, map, transform data. Create, update record in SAP or on-premises SQL via gateway. Best practice: use change tracking or Delta queries to avoid full syncs, and implement idempotency to handle duplicates. What is a typical B2B purchase order processing scenario? Trigger: AS2 or FTP receive inbound 850 x12 PO message. Actions: decode x12. Validate against schema, agreement. Transform to XML, JSON using map. Route to internal ERPG. Generate 997 acknowledgement. Encode and send back via AS2. Best practice: use batching for high-volume partners and enable MDN for delivery confirmation. Describe an intelligent ticket routing scenario using AI. Trigger: new email arrives in support inbox, Office 365. Actions: pass email, call Azure OpenAI to analyze sentiment, content. Condition based on category, urgency. Route to correct Teams channel or create ServiceNow ticket. Send acknowledgement. Best practice: use content safety filter and human in the loop for high-risk classifications. What is a file processing automation scenario? Trigger: when a file is added to Azure Blob Storage or SFTP. Actions: get file content, pass CSV, Excel, transform data. Load into SQL database or data lake. Notify team via Teams. Best practice: Use for each with concurrency limit for large files, and add error handling scope for failed rows. Explain a hybrid integration scenario. Trigger. New order in Shopify. Cloud SaaS. Actions. Get order details. Use on-premises data gateway. Update inventory in local SQL server. Sync back to Shopify. Send shipping notification. Best practice. Use private endpoints for gateway traffic and monitor gateway health. Describe an event-driven microservices orchestration scenario. Trigger. Message received in Azure Service Bus Queue. Actions. Process message. Call multiple Azure functions or APIs in parallel. Aggregate results. Publish final event to event grid. Best practice. Use scopes for parallel branches and configure retries for transient failures. What is a common retail order fulfillment scenario? Trigger. New order in e-commerce platform, Shopify, Magento. Actions. Validate payment. Update inventory, on-premises or cloud. Generate shipping label. Notify warehouse via Teams. Send customer confirmation email. Best practice. Implement ID impotency checks to avoid duplicate processing. How is Logic Apps used in healthcare for patient notifications? Trigger. Appointment status change in EHR system. Actions. Get patient details. Condition. Upcoming versus cancelled. Send SMS. Email reminder via Twilio, Office 365. Log compliance audit. Best practice. Use HIPAA-compliant connectors and private endpoints for data privacy. What best practice applies to error handling in real-world workflows? Use scopes to group related actions and configure run after on failure for try-catch patterns. Implement retry policies on transient failures and terminate with custom status on permanent errors. Always log detailed context, inputs, outputs, and notify teams via alerts. What performance optimization best practices should be followed? Prefer built-in connectors over managed ones for speed. Use concurrency in for each loops carefully. Limit to avoid throttling. Avoid unnecessary polling. Prefer webhook triggers when available. How do you ensure maintainability in large Logic Apps projects? Use meaningful names for triggers, actions, and scopes. Group related logic into scopes and document in line with comments. Store reusable prompts, schemas, and maps in integration accounts or Key Vault. What monitoring best practice is most important in production? Enable diagnostic settings and route all logs to Log Analytics plus Azure Monitor. Create dashboards for success rate, latency, and failures. Set alerts for any failed run and critical performance degradation. How should you approach scalability in real-world scenarios? Use standard model for predictable high-throughput workloads. Implement batch processing and split on for large payloads. Monitor concurrency limits and scale hosting plan as needed. What is a good practice for managing secrets and credentials? Use managed identities for all Azure to Azure calls. Store API keys and certificates in Azure Key Vault. Never hardcode secrets in workflow definitions or templates. How do you handle versioning and change management? Maintain workflow JSON, consumption, or project files, standard, in Git. Use semantic versioning and tag releases. Deploy with blue, green, or canary patterns to minimize risk. What is a recommended disaster recovery strategy? Use geo-redundant storage for run history and artifacts. Script backup, restore of integration accounts and custom connectors. Test failover procedures regularly in non-prod environments. Describe a scenario for cost optimization in production. Switch from frequent polling to webhook triggers. Use longer retention only for critical runs. Monitor connector calls and replace high-volume managed connectors with built-in where possible. How is Logic Apps used for IoT event processing? Trigger. Message received from IoT Hub. Actions. Pass telemetry. Condition. Anomaly detection. Call Azure Functions for ML scoring. Alert via Teams. Store in Cosmos DB. Best practice. Use stateless workflows for high throughput. What is a good practice for team collaboration on Logic Apps? Use VS Code plus Git for standard workflows. Implement RBAC with contributor in dev, operator in prod. Document workflows using code comments and external design docs. How do you avoid common pitfalls in real-world implementations? Never hardcode secrets or environment-specific values. Test with real payloads and volumes before production. Monitor costs and performance from day one. What makes Logic Apps successful in enterprise environments? Combination of low-code speed with pro-code extensibility. Enterprise connectors, security, hybrid support, and AI readiness. Strong DevOps integration and operational tools. How is this topic frequently tested in interviews? Candidates are asked to design a complete end-to-end scenario. Example, intelligent order processing. Questions focus on best practices, error handling, security, cost, scalability. Ability to explain trade-offs and justify design decisions is key. What final advice would you give someone starting with Logic Apps in production? Start small with consumption for prototyping, then move to standard for production scale. Prioritize security, managed identities, private endpoints, and monitoring from the beginning. Document everything, automate deployments, and continuously optimize based on real usage. Thank you for watching this final session on real-world examples, scenarios, and best practices in Azure Logic Apps. And thank you for following the entire 13 video series. If you found this video, or the series, helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to ZoomInData. More Azure and cloud integration content is coming soon. Stay connected and keep learning.